Matthew Mallory is back in Oklahoma tonight.
He's accused of raping 2 teenage girls and running off with his 14-year-old niece. Fox 25's Marissa Mendelson was there when deputies booked him into jail. Marissa.
Well, last week, the district attorney charged Matthew Mallory with 5 counts of sexual abuse. So today, we tried to get his side of the story.
Did you have sex with 2 teenage girls?
Nope.
Anything you want to say?
Put that on the nose.
As Matthew Mallory walks into the Kingfisher County Jail, he tries to shield his face with a religious book. Over the past couple weeks, this already convicted sex offender has developed quite a story.
It's just completely disgusting. The guy should never be let out of jail again.
First, Mallory ran off with his teenage niece, and now he's accused of sexually abusing 2 teenage girls. According to this affidavit, one of the victims went to Mallory's house to spend the night with her friend. While there, the document shows she learned Matthew and her friend were having sex. It goes on to reveal Matthew told her if she had sex with him, it would prove she wasn't going to tell on him.
It's sickening.
We went by the house where detectives say some of the sex abuse happened.
Hello?
The home where Matthew Mallory once lived with his girlfriend now appears to be abandoned.
Oh, there's flies everywhere.
Now Mallory is back in Oklahoma after an almost 10-hour ride from San Antonio, Texas. The deputy who rode with him says Mallory was calm during the ride.
He asked me several questions about what was going to happen to him, and I didn't make any comments to him. I told him I just wasn't really sure because I didn't think it was appropriate for me to speak to him on that level.
But we saw a different side of Mallory during his walk into jail.
Why did you run away?
Because I can.
Anything that you want to say?
Off. Put that on the nose.
And we spoke with Matthew Mallory's brother on the phone today. He didn't want to comment, but on Friday when we spoke with him, he said the allegations are shocking and disgusting. He added if he knew what was going on, he would have done something about it. Back to you.
Thanks, Marissa. The OSBI tells us it may pursue more charges against Mallory for providing alcohol and drugs to minors. His first court appearance is Wednesday.
Up front at 9:30 tonight, a mother makes a tearful plea for answers in the disappearance of her 2 sons.
It's a complex case involving accusations of torture and possibly murder. Fox 25's Crystal Bennett tells us about the effort to unravel this mystery.
No one can or will say what happened to Dylan and Austin. They were born in the small northeast Oklahoma town of Veneta. A couple from Colorado adopted them more than 10 years ago. Now that man and woman are behind bars, and detectives are involved in a multi-state search for the boys.
Dylan was born May 11th of '92.
Mary Hyder has nothing left but pictures of her sons.
He was born January 29th of '96.
Memories.
Very quiet baby until he started walking.
And many questions.
If they are alive, where they been in? Have they been safe and taken care of?
Mary is having trouble accepting the news she heard just a few weeks ago.
When the U.S. Marshal found me and told me that 2 of my children were missing.
It marked the first time she had heard about Dylan or Austin in more than a decade. She gave up her parental rights in 2000.
My attorney told me that there was no way I was ever going to win the case.
Mary says the state of Colorado took Dylan, Austin, and her youngest son, David, after allegations of neglect surfaced. She says her lawyer recommended an open adoption.
They were happy. I thought I'd done the right thing.
Linda and Edward Bryant adopted all 3 boys. Court records show they lived in this quaint home in Colorado.
Very kind and caring people. But then again, what goes on behind closed doors?
An arrest affidavit out of El Paso County, Colorado, indicates despite its charming exterior, this was a house of horrors.
They locked him in a trunk, handcuffed him.
They were wrapped in blankets and bundled up for hours at a time.
Mary's sisters cannot imagine their little nephews enduring such pain.
I was told that they were tased.
These accusations surfaced earlier this year. Court documents indicate a former foster child and one of the Bryants' other adopted sons got together for lunch. Both men are now adults. They discussed memories of seeing Austin with black eyes, cuts, and marks on his body from electric shocks. They say one day Austin disappeared.
Dylan had also mysteriously vanished about a year earlier.
The torture that they put them through, there's just no way a 7-year-old can live through that.
Court records show the two men came forward with their claims about the Bryants in January, prompting detectives in Colorado to launch an investigation.
I just cannot plea enough with our citizens.
When sheriff's deputies confronted the Bryants, court documents show the couple told conflicting stories about what happened.
The kids were with Linda. They were with Edward. They ran away. They even said that they were here in Oklahoma with my sister.
According to the affidavit, Edward Bryant admits the boys went missing years ago and admits he lied to cover it up. But police say he could not tell them where to find the brothers now.
How can 2 children from one home disappear and nobody know anything? They know something.
Mary and her sisters made these flyers and have been taking them all over town. Their mission is to tell everybody about the boys.
Getting the word out there as much as I can. Somehow, somewhere, somebody knows something.
She believes the Bryants hold the answers in their Colorado jail cells.
Please tell me where my children are, what you've done with them.
She's hopeful for a reunion with the son she called her little Einstein and with her favorite soccer star. She just wants closure.
Whether they've sent my children somewhere, or whether I have to bury my kids. I need to know.
Court documents indicate the third brother, David, was still living with Linda Bryant when police arrested her in Texas. Mary says she's determined to get custody of her youngest son. Back to you.
These are age-progressed photos of the brothers. Dylan may also go by the name Edward, his legal name after the adoption. He would be 18 now. Austin is 15. The Bryants are not charged in the brothers' disappearances. They're charged with theft for lying about the boys' whereabouts and falsifying reports to continue collecting monthly state stipends for both Dylan and Austin.
For years, Oklahoma has hung its hat on oil and gas.
Now the earliest days of exploration are coming back to haunt us. Fox 25's Phil Cross shows us how emergency crews stop a potentially deadly situation nearly 100 years in the making.
They open up all over Oklahoma, in backyards, farm fields, even under homes. Wells that no one knew existed until oil or gas starts spewing out. And we found out sometimes it's much more serious than just an inconvenience. The wooden beams, the ropes, the iron bits all serve as a tribute to the start of it all, the first ever commercial oil rig, now rebuilt on top of the original well site in Bartlesville. But just a few blocks from this monument to the modern age, a modest neighborhood that on this day is reminded the city's oil history is still very much present.
This was oil field before it was town.
A well drilled, buried, and forgotten came to life.
It was making some gas, so we just used water to kill the well, and we welded threads on the top of the surface pipe, and we've got some control on it now.
Not just any gas, this was poisonous hydrogen sulfide, or H2S.
And H2S doesn't wake you up. It kills your olfactory nerves. Then it takes away the involuntary breathing. And immediately you basically smother to death and never know you're dead.
John Hurd is the senior field supervisor for the Oklahoma Corporation Commission's Oil and Gas Division. He says it's not as easy as just plugging a hole.
The volume had quadrupled since I had first turned the well in.
It starts with an emergency hearing before the Oklahoma Corporation Commission.
It's your opinion then that this is a situation that requires emergency action by the commission?
Yes, sir.
The Corporation Commission has a fund for plugging abandoned wells. It has plugged old holes everywhere from farm fields to the new Department of Labor building near the Capitol.
This is a life-threatening situation, and I think I will be absolutely signing this letter to the governor.
The commission must get permission from the governor to bypass the competitive bidding process, because back in Bartlesville, every second counts.
We found out that people around here for the last week had started having headaches and real problems.
P&P Cementing initially stopped the gas with salt water. Next, it drops pipe to fill the well with cement.
A lot of these wells, they plugged them the best way that they knew at the time. They came in and they pulled all the old casing out, everything that they could reuse, and then they filled the wells with mud, and maybe a little cement on top or maybe a little bit of wood.
Now we're actually taking care of, as one person put it, the sins of our fathers. You know, they didn't know, they didn't understand, so you can't really fault them.
They can't be faulted because they can't be found.
There are literally hundreds of wells that were drilled, either completed or abandoned, that there was never one piece of paper written on.
When a well is classified as abandoned, it means there is no record or the company that created it no longer exists.
Abandoned oil and gas wells are a huge problem.
The state pays to plug these abandoned wells with money collected from a tax on current oil and gas companies. While it appears to be routine work,
If somebody says run, take off.
every well is different. There's no way to know what could be beneath.
I was concerned about the methane. I could see it pouring out of the top of that pipe they had.
Don Norwood lives next to the newly discovered well.
My daughter smelled it that evening.
He's not too worried about the deadly H2S, but that's mostly because he's a retired chemical engineer.
Working for Phillips, we had everything around the process I worked on was flammable, except the nitrogen.
And knowing with this hole next door, it likely means there's not one under his house.
Nobody paid any attention to environment, cleanup. You know, they used to dam wells or dam creeks and flow their oil into there and then put it in wagons and haul it.
Now there is much more regulation, but Hurd says before you buy or build a home, look at historical photos of the area. Sometimes old wells show up as dead spots in the grass.
The Corporation Commission has come in and beefed up their regulations and really taken a look at what it takes to protect the environment and the citizens.
The Corporation Commission plugs more than 100 wells every year. Dozens of holes that, without the commission, could continue to contaminate communities across Oklahoma.
Well, I don't know how big and important it is. It's what I do for a living.
John Hurd may not think he's that important, but after we shot this story, we found out that Hurd went back to that neighborhood on his own. He assumed if an oil company drilled one hole, there were likely others. And Hurd found another well a few houses down, leaking methane gas and more of that deadly H2S. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, the Corporation Commission is responsible for plugging wells, but the Oklahoma Energy Resources Board restores surface damage at abandoned wells at those well sites.
They've wasted my whole childhood life. They tore me apart.
A rape victim recants, but says prosecutors refuse to listen. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jamie Soretta.
And I'm Mark Taylor in for Andrew tonight. We told you about Raymond Lawrence's attempt to get a new trial last night, but now Fox 25's Phil Cross tells us why the DA may be breaking nearly a century of Oklahoma legal history by trying to keep the case out of court. He has tonight's Fox follow-up.
Raymond Lawrence is 8 years into a 20-year sentence after pleading guilty to raping a 12-year-old girl. Now his attorneys say his need for a new trial isn't just what's right, it's what's legally required.
Very angry. I hate them. I do. They've wasted my whole childhood life. They tore me apart.
AC says she was the victim of adults who forced her to say Raymond Lawrence raped her.
I think in light of the affidavit of the victim, the young woman, saying this did not happen, I think that we're clearly within the rights of a new trial, and I think there may never be a trial if we can get somebody to just listen.
In a newly sworn affidavit, AC says she will take a lie detector test to prove she's telling the truth and ask Lawrence be released from prison as soon as possible.
If he grants a new trial, he would have the ability to bring this man back and give him a bond and allow him to remain out free pending the trial.
But the district attorney's office in Custer County has asked a judge to refuse Lawrence a hearing on the new evidence, though the DA's office may not have the law on its side.
For 75 years in the state of Oklahoma, newly discovered evidence is a basis to give this man a new trial.
In the 1935 case of McKissick versus State, Bill McKissick was challenging his 5-year prison sentence for stealing a mule, saying there was new evidence since his trial. The Court of Criminal Appeals ruled new evidence is grounds for a new trial, and even though it ultimately did not rule in favor of McKissick, Lawrence's attorney, David Slane, says the case shows justice requires hearing all the evidence.
I want to believe that the district attorney's office, once they see and review everything, will want to seek justice. And I think in this case, clearly this young woman coming out and saying these things, that this did not happen, I can't see any other result than this man being released.
The assistant district attorney was not in when we went by her office, but over the phone she said based on the evidence in this case, she filed the appropriate response. She then refused to answer any further questions, saying she doesn't try cases in the media. Mark?
A judge has not yet decided whether Lawrence will get a new trial. Prosecutors have argued his appeal should be thrown out since it was not filed soon after his trial, even though the witness only recently came forward.
Child porn allegations, a hot topic at tonight's school board meeting in McCloud. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Spino.
And I'm Jamie Soretta. Parents filled the room hoping to have their questions answered, but were quickly shut down. Fox 25's Dita Payton tells us why the school's plans suddenly changed. Dita joins us live from McCloud. Dita.
Jamie, the school attorney said they reconsidered speaking about the allegations against Kim Crane following the advice from the district attorney. They say they don't want to do anything to hamper the criminal investigations, but some parents still think their questions should have been answered. The school board is silenced by an ongoing criminal investigation into a former teacher.
District officials and board members will honor the request not to issue any statements or answers or answer any questions that one might have relating to Mrs. Crane.
Larry Lewis is the attorney for McCloud Public Schools. He says the Pottawatomie County District Attorney advised the board not to speak about child porn charges against Kim Crane.
Y'all need to let us know something.
Candace Nelson has a daughter at McCloud Elementary. She says she doesn't understand why the school would send a letter home with kids promising to address parents' concerns if they can't answer their questions.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed because, I mean, that's what this meeting was about. They were supposed to answer any questions that we had.
The first thought that came in my mind was we were shut out.
This mother did not want to be identified. Mrs. Crane was her daughter's teacher.
When you're betrayed like that, it's difficult.
As much as she says she wants to know more about what happened in her child's classroom, she says she can't fault the school for staying silent.
I understand why, because everybody's hands are tied in this situation.
The school board meeting wrapped up just about 30 minutes ago. The school board decided to hire Sherry Tolgetsky as Crane's replacement. Reporting live in McCloud, Dita Payton, Fox 25 News.
Dita, thank you. Kim Crane was expected in court tomorrow. That date has been moved to December 19th.